Alright, moving on to panel discussion 2 on the topic Top Technology Trends in Connected Transport. Our speakers are Mr. Brijesh Gopi Suresh, Connected Cloud Services, Country Head Bosch. Mr. Omkar Panse, Associate Vice President KPIT. VVS Nunna, Cable and Satellite Media Services, Tech Mahindra Limited. Mr. Sundara Ramalingam Nagalingam, Head of Manufacturing NVI India. Shrikant Satyanarayan, General Manager Technology Sales Visteon. And Mr. Roger Langtod, Associate Director Strategy Analytics, USA, would be moderating the panel. Please put your hands together for all the speakers, ladies and gentlemen.
I have to wrestle with everybody else's name. Everybody always has a problem with my name, so and Dale Carnegie tells us the sweetest sound is the sound of somebody getting our name correctly. So we got that out of the way right away, so thank you very much. This is my first visit to India, and so I had a crash course. I got an introduction, shall we say, not a crash course, to Indian traffic, which involves a lot of 2 feet, 2 wheels, 3 wheels, and 4 wheels. And what I'm driving at is it's a unique traffic environment here, and wrestling with that alone is one of the key challenges in any market, traffic. Understanding traffic movement and the movement of vehicles and people, and hopefully in a safe manner. So, without further ado, the purpose of this conversation is to identify the leading trends in connected transport, and we have some experts here, and I already know they have some strong opinions on some topics, some of which are specified in the program, some of which are not specified in the program. So I anticipate an open discussion, and I'm not opposed to people raising their hand. Clearly, many of you have indicated that you are not shy and have strong opinions, so you're welcome to join the conversation. So, but I will try to adhere as much as possible and cover off all the topics that are listed here, and taking them in order. The first question is, and I'd like to get a perspective from everybody on the panel, because I think outside of India, there's a lot of discussion and focus around autonomous vehicles and self-driving cars. And I think within India, the government has said that the government's interest is much more in electrification. And I guess it's almost an even question in terms of which is going to be more challenging, getting people to buy electric vehicles or trying to establish a vehicle autonomy on India's highways. But the question here is self-driving vehicles versus driverless vehicles. What's the difference? So that's a bit of a challenging question, but I think you gentlemen are equipped to respond to that. And I'd like to get an opinion from each of you as to your thoughts on that first question. So self-driving vehicles versus driverless vehicles, and if you would, in the context of what's happening here in this market, and what are the prospects for that? What does it mean to this market? So, if you would. And you might want to introduce yourself, since everybody was introduced, but not in a particular order, I don't think, so.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brijesh Gopi Suresh, Country Head for Connected Cloud Services at Bosch. It's a very interesting question. Self-driven vehicles, driverless vehicles, autonomous driving, a lot of these terminologies in the industry today, and it's obvious that the most important trend globally is autonomous driving, and this is kind of linked to the driverless cars and what technology has been evolving in the recent times, mostly abroad.
Can you maybe touch on explaining why it is so important that we're working towards this? What are the implications of working towards an autonomous vehicle?
Okay, I think it is one of the trends. We saw in the audience there were many people who raised the hands and they said they want a driverless car. This is because...
Okay, so consumer demand.
Consumer demand.
All right, one.
Is this what the consumer expects in the near future. Is it in 2020? I doubt, personally.
But okay,
Again, this is an important trend.
I'm going to push you a little bit. Coming from Bosch, I thought you were going to jump into the data gathering and algorithm side of the conversation, but it sounds like you're headed towards the business model side of the conversation. So can you talk, which are you more comfortable talking about?
Okay, both.
Okay.
I was just answering the question of what it means to Bosch. It is an important trend. Connectivity is one of the stepping stones towards autonomous driving, so it's an important trend. That's why we are here. And I'm going to touch later about data and what it means to Bosch. But most importantly, autonomous driving is a trend. It is for the future. I don't think anybody can put a hand and say when it would be commercially available in India, because it is a kind of evolving technology which many companies, including Bosch, we are working on with Google and other partners worldwide. So we need to have a clarity on what you mean by self-driven vehicles and driverless cars. In India, most important trend is like rent a car. You don't call like a rental company, you call self-driven. You can self-drive a vehicle. You can have a vehicle from Zoom car, for example, right? So we need to have clarity on the terminologies we use, and self-driven vehicles today refer to the kind of vehicles you can rent, and you can interpret it in different terms, but that's what is very popular in terms of terminology. And when you talk about driverless cars, is what we refer to as autonomous driving, and that's the definition, what I would say, and that's the clear difference. So in self-driven vehicles, there is still a driver. So like one of the speakers said in another panel, he would love to drive his car. I think that's what the whole business model is around, self-driven vehicles.
Can we make a quick distinction between, because you talked about Zoom car, so that's a shared vehicle. That's going to play a role if we have autonomous vehicles, is it not? There may be more Zoom cars, whereas right now we're probably using Ola or Uber, but if we have autonomous vehicles and the car can just come without a driver, then Zoom car becomes a little more important?
It is going to evolve. The self-driven cars are going to be autonomous in the future.
You're not following me at what I'm driving at. Maybe you don't need to own the car anymore, is what I'm saying.
There are innovative business models. There are even questions of owning a car. If you do some maths with the evolution of Ubers and Olas, there is already a question whether you need to own a car. What is the total cost of ownership and what is the return of investment. So there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of innovative models, there are a lot of service-oriented business models coming up. It's very interesting to watch this space in the next 5 to 10 years, but we clearly believe that the future, whenever that is, it's going to be autonomous driving. That might take a while.
Please introduce yourself and your thoughts on this question.
Okay, this is VGS Nona. I work for Tech Mahindra. I actually started my career with digitization, maybe a telecommunication side from analog technology to digital radios, the wireless communication. Then after that I moved to the VSAT communication. Then again now I'm currently working on SD and NLP and digital customer experience solutions. Also I set up with the cable and satellite media practice for Tech Mahindra, where actually I'm responsible for the North America for monetizing the Wi-Fi network for the cable companies.
So you're a wireless expert, so do
Yes.
these self-driving cars or autonomous vehicles need to be connected, and if so, why do you think so?
Yeah, for any connected vehicle you require the communication is important. So today's scenario we have a 3 type of communications we are using the connected car. One is a cellular based, that is a cellular communication. Second is a DSRC. Third is the without any network, that is called driverless car. So that doesn't require any communication. Everything is inbuilt into the car. It is a artificial intelligence using a computer vision technologies, some other transducers and transformation telematic systems used, and that is automated. So if you look at the trends, whatever is going on today in industry, the cellular-based connected car already is available across the globe, including even India. There are applications, in fact, some of our speakers are explained about the kind of solutions are available. That is readily available. That is a low-hanging fruit for the business people. And some of the OEM partners open for the application reference design kits. So like a OEM partner, so the people can start up, and anybody can come onto that platform, develop the applications related to the connected car. It may be a pollution control, carbon emission model, or maybe a parking systems, or maybe a traffic-less smart city systems, whatever it is. There are so many applications are available. We can innovate, keep on innovating into that cellular thing. The second technology, which this is still under research, which is not released yet, DSRC, that is dedicated short-range communication. That is basically work about again the Wi-Fi. It is a FCC.
I'm going to interrupt you. You're going to have your DSRC chance.
Yeah.
I think that is almost automated driving, wouldn't you say?
It's not automated. Still, you require the driver. The today's scenario, it is even the specifications are not finalized yet. Probably 2018, the U.S. government, U.S. Department of Transportation is have a vision, and they work with some of the companies who are like SI companies like us.
Okay,
Okay, sorry.
we're going to get to DSRC. We're talking about driverless cars, or
Yeah, that is a third automated system. That is a driverless car. And in fact, Tech Mahindra, and we are working with the Mahindra for the driverless car. But I don't know when we are going to launch it based on the kind of environment available in India, like a traffic or any other road systems. But we are trying for that.
I think Amkar might have a perspective on self-driving or driverless vehicles. So there are, if you could pass the microphone. So there are several different use cases for autonomy or self-driving vehicles. It could be in a city if we can figure out how to handle all these two-legged, two-wheeled vehicles and people and intersection challenges, etc. Or it could be high speed on a highway, fairly straight, or it could be only in defined areas, or maybe it could be in agriculture. So can you comment on self-driving or autonomy?
Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Omkar Panse. I work with KPIT Technologies, and I focus on infotainment and connectivity at KPIT. Taking a very Indian perspective, a simple definition could be a self-driving car is when you drive, and the driverless is when your driver doesn't show up. So, just kidding. But back to your question, Roger, I think true. In India especially, I think the first application area could be the off-highway vehicles, where what is happening is agriculture has been traditionally very, very labor intensive, but there have been challenges to find labor. There have been challenges to find people who will actually do the job. So although the sizes of the fields are not large, we see something different happening in terms of, hey, I'm not able to find a person. And if I don't find a person to do, putting the seeds or whatever needs to be done, I'm going to have a problem. And as such, they today rent, many of those rent tractors, for example. So you rent a vehicle, but then you don't have a labor. That's a kind of dynamics. So that might be one application where an autonomous tractor might see a day of light in India much earlier than the rest of the environment. And he referred to environment, that's very true. I think it's extremely challenging in India. I mean, even if you're walking by yourself, it's very difficult to predict who's going to come from where. So there are no set of rules, at least today, if you take a larger environment. The next application could be certain controlled rollouts per se. For example, I'll just take example of certain segments of the Pune-Mumbai expressway, certain segments between Delhi and Noida, etc., where some experimentation could happen to give limited autonomy. And the third area where we already see things happening is, again, the differentiation is autonomous versus automated. So we see automated parking, we see automated lane detection or lane departure, but that's an automated part. So driver is still in control, it's not fully autonomous. But if we follow these steps, probably few years down the line, we would have semi-autonomous vehicle. I'm not personally so hopeful that we will see autonomous, at least in Indian context, in the near future.
And just one more point. Fortunately or unfortunately, the military drives a lot of our technology development in the United States. And the military is very interested in autonomous vehicles on the battlefield, and one of the challenges is wireless communication, secure wireless communications to those vehicles. So if you're in an agricultural environment, is the availability of wireless also a bit of a challenge?
I think availability of communication network is a challenge in certain pockets. However, I think things will change. We are already seeing a rollout of 4G, for example, from a couple of big players. They are very, very keen to look at the applications which make use of this backbone which is going to be available. The government is pretty bullish on a digital or digitization initiative where they have identified few tens of thousands of villages where Wi-Fi will be made available. So you would have a village which will have a pretty good Wi-Fi connectivity. What we need to figure out is an integration of that network as to how I could use it with a secure layer on top of it to be able to communicate with my vehicle. So it may not be only cellular, or it may not be only satellite. It could be cellular and Wi-Fi combination to keep the cost low, but then have some kind of an application layer security on top of it.
So I think you have a unique perspective on what it takes to enable a self-driving or autonomous experience. Today we're talking about cameras and radar. Of course, we see a lot of cars gathering data with LiDAR, but LiDAR is a little bit expensive. But some people say 4 or 5 years from now, LiDAR will replace radar and much of the camera responsibility. Can you comment a little bit about what is required to enable autonomy and self-driving on a vehicle? What kinds of scanning technologies?
Sure. Sundaram Lingam, I think most of you were there in my session this morning. I'm from NVIDIA. So to answer your question, Roger.
And processing requirements.
I'm sorry.
And processing requirements.
Sure, absolutely, yes. Okay. So, I firmly believe that, it's not that you catch up with technology, it's technology that catches up with you. It's my belief, my personal opinion, that there is no way we could escape this technology. There might be a time lag between when India catches up and when the rest of the world started up. There will be a time lag, but then I'm very sure that at some point in time it's going to catch up. To answer your specific question, so this radars and sensors and cameras, computer vision and all, this is going to be the backbone of autonomous vehicles. That's how it's going to evolve, and they are going to define the safety of the driver and of the car in the future. And there will be a time when you will feel that driving, or rather sitting in an autonomous vehicle is much safer than driving your own vehicle. Because if you look at the way computer vision is evolving and big data analytics is evolving, at some point in time, I'm sure that the rate of accidents that happen in an autonomous vehicle will be much lesser than, and there will be statistics to prove that, will be much lesser than the number of accidents that happen in a self-driven vehicle. So, that's my perspective. Yeah.
And what about the processing that's required? Because some of what you have, although it's impressive, can be a little bit expensive.
Right.
So how do we get the processing power? Some of it can be in the cloud, some of it is on board. How can we, achieve that data interpretation in a self-driving vehicle at a reasonable cost?
Sure. So the data interpretation in a self-driving vehicle happens through a technique which is typically it is called deep learning, wherein you gather huge amounts of data. Why is it called deep learning? There's a reason for why is it not shallow learning? Why is it deep learning? What's significant about that word deep? What happens is that you gather huge amounts of data, and this data is fed to a computer, okay, which typically fits onto the electronic control unit of a car. And then what happens is the computer is trained to learn from the data, and then it reacts to situations when it actually happens. That's what happens in a self-driven, in a driverless vehicle. Now, the accuracy of or how good the reaction is depends upon how many scenarios you have fed to the computer, and then it also learns as it goes along. Now, this requires enormous processing. And today, if you look at it, the processing power that is needed, or the cost that gets into the processor that does this, if you take it as a fraction of the of the car itself, it's like, it's nothing, it's minuscule. So I really don't think that the processing capacity or the price of processing power alone contributes to it. It is more of the sensors that are needed that adds to the price of the vehicle. And I think, talking particularly about India, I think it will come up. I mean, gone are the days when people used to buy cars for 1.5 lakhs, 2 lakhs in India. I mean, nowadays we all have very fancy cars running in India, and I'm sure many of us remember that there are only 2 brands in India. I mean, it was one brand, Ambassador, and then when Maruti took over, we were all very, very happy about it. And now I can't even count, and we are talking about, the average price of a car, average price has gone up to about 8 to 10 lakhs, if I'm right. So, in my perspective, I really don't think that should be a limiting factor. The limiting factor is availability of the infrastructure and adoption of the technology. It would be the limiting factor, or I would say the factor that would contribute to how quickly the technology would be adopted. In my opinion, I don't think price would be a factor for adoption.
Okay. Shrikant, so if you could address the topic from the standpoint of, so we have Google that wants to take out the steering wheel and the pedals completely, that's really, driverless, obviously. And we have Tesla in the US. And how many people have been in Tesla with autopilot and experienced that? Okay, if you have the chance, you should. I have. It's a little bit it's like being at war, where you have flashes of terror, but generally it's boring. But there are just some moments there where it's a little bit unnerving. So they made it available, saying to the customer, "This is beta. Use at your own risk." So you have no steering wheel, no pedals. Use at your own risk. And then there's another vision that Ford has suggested, where the feature, the autopilot, would be available in certain defined areas, like the highway or some other well-scanned area. So in other words, it's kind of an extension of ADAS. Okay, autopilot is available here. Okay, autopilot is soon not going to be available. You have to take control again. So you're being with Visteon, and please introduce yourself. What is your perspective on what makes the most sense, and how you see this unfolding and being brought to consumers?
Shrikant here from Visteon. Just before answer your question, let me put my thought process or my perspective on the self-driving to the driverless. Okay. So given the revolutionary thought of driverless car, actually don't come, especially in automotive, it won't come. Tomorrow the revolution happens, right? Because of the safety and security aspects of the automotive industry. So what happens is that it goes in an evolution mode, right from the mechanical based system to adding some more electronics functions for the safety, like ABS or those EBD kind of functions, and then go on adding the security features like body control modules and things like that. And then now, basically we are adding assisted automotive like assisted automated like ADAS systems, and then it leads into a fully automated, right, autonomous vehicle. If I draw another parallel to it with respect to the consumer, they start with the self, the chauffeur based driven to the self driven, and then whatever we are talking about, the pool car based system, whatever now assisted with CRM modules and softwares, and it will go to the car assisted or the fully automated vehicle assisted pool car. What I mean is that there is not going to be any special manual the maintenance of the CRM, rather the car themselves will manage the pool. So that way you have the two parallels which matches between the end user, the consumer, as well the technology evolution. Coming to your question on basically the failure mode effective analysis, so that we call in design terms is a FMEA. What if one fails, right? That's the question, if I'm correct. So what happens is that actually when in India about 10 years before we tried to launch anti-lock brake system in India for India, the takers are very less because people have been very much equipped and very much confident in driving the mechanical vehicle than the electronics assisted vehicle. Yeah, so they don't believe electronics because the reliability of electronics is not proven that time, and it's got failed. So what happens is that you need to have a more regulatory requirements come into place in parallel to put the electronics assisted into the vehicle. That is one. And as time passed by, when people been equipped with lot of electronics at home and in the daily use, then automatically it becomes the perception that electronics is also more reliable like mechanical. Okay, so far the electronics cannot beat mechanical elements definitely, but still the reliability of electronics has been proven for last decade, and I believe that even the next decade this will still continue and people will be well versed with or very much aware about the reliability of the electronics piece. However, as an automotive industry, it is not only they make the fully automated and also a fail-safe mechanism. Okay, and when he touched upon the safety, the autonomous vehicle will be more safety for drivers. It also built for safety for the pedestrians as well, right? So that's the way it has been it's been designed for the whole ecosystem, not just for the driver. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, part of what you're saying, the value proposition is customer awareness, acceptance, and interest in that technology, trust, if you will. Because we have this microphone problem, I guess, you can hang on, I'll ask you the next question and then we'll come back this way.
Okay.
So the next question is dongles. So we have this OBD2 port and you have this OBD2 port here, which was intended for emissions testing, which means electric vehicles don't have an OBD2 port. However, obviously internal combustion engines predominate, so most of the cars have it, and it creates an opportunity to not just get the testing data for emissions, but also the full diagnostic portfolio of information from the car, including remote controls, etc. Which means it also introduces a security vulnerability in the car as well. Now, there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of startups all over the world going after this opportunity because, certainly being in cloud services, you would know if we can get this data, we can do some very interesting things with it. Although a lot of those things are kind of boring to the average consumer, and the average consumer doesn't know what an OBD2 port is. So I've fully revealed my perspective on the subject, which I did not intend to do actually originally. But we have Vinley here, and we have Autotrans here, and there may be some other OBD players here. What are your thoughts about what can and should be done with that port, and what the sort of marketing opportunities are?
Okay, so actually speaking, I know as an automotive engineer, the OBD is actually mentioned or designed for the diagnostic purposes. Okay, it's not for any other purpose, just for the diagnostic purpose. But because of the increased usage, and number two is that because the vehicle data is available in that OBD port, we are kind of using it for other purposes. But actually it is not designed for that.
Let me do one other thing before you continue. Does anyone on this panel have an OBD2 device plugged into their car? Any one of their cars?
No.
Everybody or?
No.
Raise hands. How many people? So you don't have one? I thought you said you did. So 3 of you have OBD devices in your cars. Okay, so you'll have an interesting perspective on this. So
sure. So the point is, I don't know whether everyone agrees with me, but it is not intended designed to tap the data from the OBD port, and we understand that it also has got the reliable data. I'm not deviating that point because that's where we are diagnosing the vehicle. Okay, so we are taking that only the limited information of the whole set of data, whatever are collecting inside the vehicle. Okay, the information is only channelized and it is very limited. Okay, you cannot have access to all the information inside the vehicle. Okay, so what happens is that if you define the functionality based on only that limited set of the data, you will be able to provide only a limited data, limited functionality.
But we're talking about automotive trends, so what I'm interested in is how would you describe the market opportunity that's represented by that port?
Okay, so with respect to market opportunity, definitely in aftermarket side, it is a tremendous opportunity in India.
For whom though? The average consumer or for a car repair shop? Who is going to make that market happen? Where is that going to happen?
I definitely believe it is more of entrepreneurs, sitting in this panel actually.
They're creating the product and the service, but who are they going to sell it to?
They will sell it to the end consumer naturally, right?
Direct. Do you think it's a B2C opportunity?
Yes.
Not a B2B.
It's not the B2B.
Okay.
B2B actually they don't even consider that as a reliable product.
Sunder?
That's my perspective.
What is your viewpoint on this? Is it a B2B or a B2C opportunity?
I think it will be both.
Okay, I'm not going to let you get off that easy.
No.
What will it be predominantly? B2B or B2C?
I think it will be B2C.
But you don't have one.
I don't have one, no.
Would you buy one?
Yeah.
If you did, what would you do with it? And I did say buy, not somebody just giving you one. So $100. Okay, $79. What do you want this to do for you? Drive more efficiently, save you money on fuel, find you cheap gas? What are we talking about?
I would prefer if it can certainly save fuel for me, drive more efficiently, and hence, by nature, I'm a person who believes in less pollution is good for
Tell you if you're a good or bad driver? How do
No, not
No, not that. Tell you what's wrong with your car and when you
not what's wrong with my car and what's wrong with my driving style, etc. Things like that. If it can help me there, I'll be happy about it.
Okay. Car, you have a device. What device do you have in your car, and what are you doing with it?
So, it was just to tinker, to get a smartphone connectivity and get the data out on Bluetooth and stuff like that. But I think, if you kind of rewind the clock a little bit, I think the OBD port, as you said, was installed when we had the internal combustion engines. And certainly at that point in time, it was intended for diagnostics, as Srikanth said, and primarily by the technicians. I think nobody saw the onslaught of technology and what's going to come our way, because most of the cars out there have had OBD ports for more than maybe 15 years, when we didn't have iPhone, when we didn't have Bluetooth. And now suddenly you have a, so to say, opening in the car, which was supposed to be meant for a limited function, but you can figure your way around it and do things with your car. And people have done, including stopping the car and doing funny things. I think the opportunity in both the places, I believe the commercial space, the B2B is much bigger, where the rental cars, the taxis, the fleet owners, including both the commercial vehicles as well as the taxi owners. Because for example, again in India, the three-wheelers, auto rickshaw, what we call, not many of them own the vehicle. They are on kind of a daily wage kind of thing. So the owner might be interested to know what's happening with that, including for taxis. Coming to B2C, we have very interesting use cases, and what I've heard is, for example, if you look at Tata Nano, what I've heard is it was pitched for kind of a car for a middle class person who aspires to buy a car. But what seems to started to happen is, maybe you buy your car for your daughter. So instead of a middle class family buying a car, you give that car to your daughter who wants to, go around. When you give a car like that, a small car to your child, you still want to figure out what's happening with the car, how it is being driven, where is the car is being taken, is your child home or not, etc. I believe OBD port comes very handy in that case, because your phone may or may not be there, and then depends on the capabilities of the device that you plug. But there are opportunities and use cases there where it could be used for tracking the safety, the driving, the way it is being driven, maybe in future possibly limiting what the car can do if my son or daughter is taking out, for example.
And do you have a device that you acquired yourself and plugged into the car?
Yes.
Does it have a brand? I mean, was this for consumers?
So I think I tried one from Automatic. The second one I don't remember. I bought it on Amazon, so I don't recall a brand, but it was kind of something like sub $70 device.
Okay. And are you looking at the data on a weekly basis?
Not on a regular basis, because as I said, it was just for a tinkering, just to kind of figure out how does it work and what happens with that. But there are, we have met a couple of startups who are working on those areas to mine the data that comes from the diagnostic port. And for example, some of the startups today presented about service and managing the service appointments. Having a port inside the car comes handy to kind of tell you, hey, it's time for servicing, rather than figuring it out the other way around.
Okay. I'm sure you have some thoughts on this subject.
I think use cases what you mentioned, advantage is that it is there for the B2B as well as B2C. B2B especially into the after sales market, that is basically servicing point of view. You can give the data to your OEM partner whenever they diagnose your car, and then maybe you can build some applications on alerts for maybe in a fuel consumption or your driving patterns. For insurance point of view, I'm just giving an example for insurance. Like today, insurance is a flat. They charge for the yearly basis. I'm talking about car license, car insurance. So what you can offer to the company like insurance companies, pay usage-based insurance. That is depending upon the two parameters. One is your health of the car. The second is the driving pattern, how we behave. So that data you can collect from this using this device, and you can give it to the insurance company, so that insurance company, suppose if the driver is good, his behavior is good, he follow all the traffic control signals, and also maintain the in time of your vehicle, then definitely you'll get a benefit of they will pass the benefit to your insurance company. This is one of the example I can give you in terms of the B2B perspective. And the B2C perspective, what you mentioned about like the child, son, especially to the teenagers, so they don't control that, they have a passion, like they want to, there is a road is free and maybe they can go unlimited speed, whatever is behind the speed limit. Like in that, immediately, suppose if you enable the threshold values in a system, it can pass it to your parents, son is driving so and so speed. So immediately, parent can give the alert to the son, oh, you are going very fast, please control your speed. So that kind of use cases you can bring into the B2C model. So this is an example I'm giving.
Well, I'm sure Bosch has a perspective on this as the global market leader in vehicle diagnostic equipment. So what is your perspective? And you have a device, you said, in your car?
Exactly, Bosch device.
Of course.
It was easy. First of all, I found 4 potential customers, so I need to get in touch with them to fit our devices. It's called Connectivity Control Unit, CCUs, we call it at Bosch. When you look at the market, connectivity already exists. When you look at Mahindra, when you look at the E2O, when you look at Honda recently, this exists. So it is getting to B2C already. But we believe that the penetration levels are still low, relatively low. When you look at commercial vehicle segments, we believe that the penetration is around 2%, and this is going to increase significantly until 2020. But when you look at passenger vehicle segment, the penetration is as low as 1%, and we believe that this penetration will go up to 3% by 2020. This is what our research says.
You do quite a bit with a very small amount of data. My understanding is that the key application, and I'm interested in your validation of this perspective, is fuel management in the car. You don't need a lot of data for that.
Fuel management is one element. When you talk about these devices, dongles, right? In the morning we heard about different trends. Scott is not here, but different trends. Vehicle health monitoring is one of the important, requirement. Like we talked about carriage motors. We saw some presentations. What is very important is to understand the vehicle. In order to understand what the error code means. What action needs to be taken. Today you mentioned OBD2. It is only related to emissions. What if there is an error in airbag? What is what if there is a error related to ESP systems, right? So we build the ECUs, so engine management. So we understand these values. Today we focus on OBD, and we believe that the trend is going more and more towards the vehicle health monitoring systems, which is essential for autonomous driving. Like for example, you talked about off-highway or other segments. If you were able to predict the failure of an injector before it happened, and if you had actual values much before, these are the kind of areas we are working towards. And OBD2 is something we believe exists today. It is commoditized in the commercial vehicle segment, not really with the OBD port, but with the standard track and trace devices. But key elements include like vehicle health monitoring, safety features. We saw a startup company that present a device which is accelerometer with a Bluetooth. These kind of solutions, like basically around the safety aspect. Again, the driver behavior, like the data is very important for us. The vehicle speed data, what you collect from the vehicle, it is different. It is interesting for different customer segments. For example, you mentioned about insurance. They want to know who is a rash driver. But when you talk about Olas and Ubers, they want to, again, know who is a rash driver, who can be risky to the society.
But it's still early days here. You can't get a usage-based insurance policy in India yet.
We believe it will take another 5 to 6 years because it's
Okay.
it's not regulated. It's not regulated yet. The premiums are low and
Now you opened an interesting door, and that it is possible to do software updates over that port. Is that anything that Bosch is looking at or working on?
See, OBD is a very sensitive topic for car manufacturers, vehicle manufacturers, and for Bosch.
Yeah, car makers do not like people messing around
With OBD port. There are also discussions in Europe that there are vehicle manufacturers who are planning to remove OBD port. They want to have over-the-air cloud-based diagnostics, so they want to restrict the access of OBD to the aftermarket. Will it happen? We have our doubts, but again, this only time can say. You have to be very careful. OBD2 makes certain information available, and this information varies from different manufacturers, and today you're only able to read it. The day you're able to write into the OBD port, I think you expose the biggest threat that you're able to hack, and you're able to stop vehicles on the highway and switch off the airbag and switch off the ignition, which is a big risk. Today it's only read-only, and there are only limited information available, and all the use cases that are available in the market are based on those read-only values.
So the next bulleted topic point is crowdsourced information, crowdsourced kinds of applications. That could be anything from avoiding traffic to finding transportation. And I think some of the startups that we're presenting here and that are presenting in the back of the room are talking about crowdsourced kinds of solutions and concepts. Since the microphone is at this end of the panel, and you're responsible for cloud services, I assume you have a perspective on the role of crowdsourcing of information.
Absolutely. Data is everything. People call it big data, we call data is everything in Bosch. So we're all working on the data, we're all working on predictive diagnostics, we're working on predictive maintenance, and crowdsourcing is one important source of information. Today it is very interesting how data can be helpful, even data from social media, data from blogs, data from different platforms can be used together, can be consolidated in one data center, and eventually it brings a lot of value over a period of time. So we invest heavily in crowdsourcing. We have platforms where we engage people in the industry, consumers, to give their opinions, to share their feedbacks, and we use this information, store it, we analyze the data, we mine the data, and then...
But this is an interesting, crucial aspect of data gathering and crowdsourcing of data, and that is the opting in. So wireless carriers gather huge volumes of data, and most of the carriers I talk to will say that 90 to 95% of what you do every day is predictable based on the data that they have on you, but they cannot use that data based on law. Similarly, car companies are very careful about preserving customer privacy. What is the state of people sort of opting in and sharing data in this market? People are eager to do this to get that value proposition?
It's a very interesting point what you mentioned, data security, data privacy. Again, this is not heavily regulated so far in India, unlike other markets like Europe or US. So there is a bit of, the situation is better here when you have crowdsourced platforms where you're able to collect information. It is something that will only develop. What we believe in the future, more and more people will be eager to provide this information. And as there are security and as there are standards that evolve, then we need to make sure that we honor the privacy and we use it in the intention we need to, and that is very important for us. At the moment, we have platforms that collect information, general information. We're working on tools at the moment. It's not easy to get data from different sources, from websites, from blogs, from social media. So at the moment, we are working on this collection and analysis phase, and I'm sure in the future it's going to be a valuable worth of information.
You're a wireless expert. I'm sure you have a perspective here.
Yeah, so the big data analytics, so the data actually there are three way of using in the connected car scenario. One is capturing the data, the second is buying the data, and third is participating the data. So three different aspects I wanted to mention. The first one is capturing the data. So look at it in the social media, so the data whatever is available, maybe weather information or there are different sources, okay. The biggest opportunity for the connected car, just I'll give you the one example, which is low-hanging fruits for all the startup companies and IT companies. Example like you are traveling, you are into the new area in Pune, so you are in particular one place you are driving, so you don't know exactly where like you want to know the contextual offers nearby the some shops they are promoting. So the moment you are in one place, so you are connected with the network example. So it is collecting the data from the social media example. Okay, there is some like a McDonald's example. So they have offer 1 + 2 something like that. So you wanted to reserve while just it is a way again you will tell it's intimate to the message saying that okay it is 2 minutes away from right now and you want to book your thing. And maybe there are some secured payment gateway systems. I'm not talking about the bank transactions because the security is there, but there are a wallet mechanism. Like example in India, in fact, we have our own solution, Mobo Money. Mobo Money is our own solution. It's a wallet like Mobo Wallet. So you can top up some value, even if you lost, that doesn't make big loss for you. There's a very small amount. From there, you can pay money to those things, and you can pick up because and in fact the GPS system. After your place the order, automatically routed to the particular store, and you can pick up your order. So this is the social media how or maybe a contextual offers nearby the shops which they are offering you to the second is buying the data. Maybe that is again like it's not a real time, but per analysis point of view. If data is available, maybe you can do some analysis for the future predictive point of time. So the regular self-learning, the another one self-learning data in the same part of that. Self-learning data, what happened, you regularly are going to the same route, exactly the system, car can understand, okay, the road is bad at this point of time. Based on the GPS, immediately it will change the speed, if it will convert into the automato. Again, automato, different levels are there, so just I'm coming to that. So crowd data, this third one is the you are participating. Is very particular about it. I mean to say either you wanted to participate where you are a location, maybe you want to publish it to the Facebook or any social media. It depending upon the how much you want to participate into that. So this is security. If you don't want to share the where you are, then you have to turn off, and you want to share with your friends, maybe you can turn on. So that is the way we can participate into the social media.
I think, I don't think India, there is so much awareness about opt-in and opt-out. My understanding in Europe, you have to explicitly opt in, whereas in US you have to opt out. By default you're in. I don't think that awareness is there yet. I think there's a lot of implicit crowdsourcing that is already happening, which users are not aware. On the use case side, the use cases are not yet there. There are some annoying use cases. I would not call it exactly crowdsourcing. It's like telemarketing. I mean, somehow, like you go to the airport and you say, hey, I need access, and you give my phone number. That phone number goes somewhere, and then I start getting unwanted SMSs. So that's like bad example, but we don't definitely want that. There are use cases of explicit crowdsourcing which have started. For example, the municipal corporation, at least in Pune, if there is a garbage bin, And if that bin is missing or overflowing, you can take a photograph and send an SMS or send a message to a given number, and they would hopefully they'll come and clear it up. But that's one example which is happening in an adjacent area. So I think it's a matter of time. It will come in the transportation.
Things like traffic and parking and potholes, etc.
Right. So on traffic, I think Waze is there in India, and they're kind of making their way ahead. It's popular in some pockets. The other ones, there needs to be a platform, really, so to say that, hey, this is what I found. We made a startup a few months back who's working on road conditions, for example, because their context was a little different. Was that the legislated members who get elected, they get elected primarily on, let's say, giving the infrastructure, giving the road, for example. What happens is the money is spent, but the road never gets done. And they hired somebody to kind of just go out there and just map it out, so to say. So it was explicit and voluntary crowdsourcing that they did to say that, hey, I spend the money, but is the work happening? And then try to collect data on road conditions. So I think from India perspective, there are a multitude of applications which are possible. We need to connect those dots and figure the way out.
Now, NVIDIA at CES had an exhibit in the booth with Mapbox. And Mapbox, if you don't know, is an OpenStreetMap company. They have about $50 million to do something interesting. I'm sure we don't quite know yet what they have in mind. But when you talk about crowdsourcing, a lot of car makers and even tier ones like Mobileye are talking about crowdsourcing the map. What are your thoughts about crowdsourcing the map? And would that map be good enough for autonomous driving? Is it good enough for regular navigation?
So we are talking about smart cities, we are talking about autonomous driving, we are talking about traffic management, security surveillance, video surveillance, etc. All these things are not possible without crowdsourcing. So, and naturally so, it's integrated, they are dependent on one another. And so this is something which we cannot escape. The obvious flip side of this technology, any technology will have flip sides, is that the privacy of the person is lost. That's the major concern. So there has to be some mechanism in which how the private data, the metadata, which reveals the identity of the person or which reveals where he is, what he is doing, things like that, which are the concerns so far as privacy is concerned, are filtered out and only the data which is relevant to the objective to be done. If you are managing traffic, there is no need to identify the car, it's just the number of cars in the data is fine. So if a mechanism evolves wherein the right data, the necessary data is filtered without invading too much into the privacy, that is when this technology will be adopted without many inhibitions. That's my perspective.
Okay. Srikanth, I want to shift to connected car unless you want to say something first about crowdsourcing. Do you want to say something about crowdsourcing?
Yeah, I have one point to add. The one point, what I'm trying to talk about the crowdsourcing is that this is a very, very effective tool, to have a closer to the real time, right? There is no other technology, right? That is number one. And number two is that especially for India kind of population and the distribution of the people, if we use this crowdsourcing technology or the crowdsourcing aspects with properly and give an authentication mechanism to that, this is the best one to achieve the real time in a very low cost. Because as ecosystem, everyone is participating in the crowdsourcing, right? So even I can write a parallel to that. The open source software is actually crowdsourcing, right? Which we are taking to mainstream today. So which we are already, validating it, and everyone has accepted it. So, and that is one point. Another point is that in India, since there are a lot of dynamism happening across. For example, suddenly a road got changed, and the route will suddenly change. That information you will get immediately when you have implemented the crowdsourcing algorithm into part of the vehicle. Yeah. So that way it is very effective tool, but has to be utilized and authentication mechanism has to be put across whoever it is.
Now, before we move to the next question, I just want to check, how are we on time? How much? 15 more minutes, okay. Plenty of time. Maybe I torch you for another 30. Anyway, 15 minutes, okay. So, connected car. There's a lot of ways to connect cars. This is where you get your opportunity to talk about B2B, but you have to wait. So we could have B2B technology, we could have connected smartphone, we could do an OBD device or an embedded telematics device like OnStar, which was mentioned earlier. Visteon at CES was showing in its booth two solutions where there was Android Auto and CarPlay, but then there was a way to toggle away from them to the car maker's own smartphone integration platform, two different solutions. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, everybody's just going to use CarPlay and Android Auto, and the car makers will not have their own smartphone integration platform. So what do you think is going to happen in vehicle connectivity, and regardless of market, but maybe with an Indian market perspective?
Okay, so you want to answer in Indian market perspective?
Probably would be the best idea.
With respect to Indian market perspective, this is very exciting. Okay, so as till now, the people haven't really experienced the Android Auto or the CarPlay inside the vehicle. Okay, in that way, it is very new to the people. Number one. Number two, you have an immediate access to the the information available in the smartphone to the dashboard, right, with a low cost. So that way, it is very attractive for this market, and I believe all the OEMs will be taking this as a default feature set in their list. Yeah, this will also add as a marketing for the OEMs as well. Number one.
But it won't be inexpensive though, right? Because there's a screen resolution and a frame rate implication.
No, it is not, okay, that requirement is not actually defined or what do you call it? The CarPlay or the Android Auto is not pushing that requirement. Rather, the consumer requirements like the increase in display, the trends of higher resolution, lower cost of displays. So that actually a prime mover for.
But I'm going to push you a little bit from the standpoint of there's probably going to be a $400 or $500 cost if you want those platforms. Number one, and might the Indian consumer say, I just want to hold my phone in my hand, I don't care about that stuff? Is that a possibility? I don't want to spend another $500.
No, actually, this particular, I'm not quite sure about this ads for $400 or $500.
That's my estimate.
Very, very less. It's actually without any additional cost. So that's what I perceive,
okay.
And I even promote to OEMs. So in India, because of this traffic congestion and the reaction time to handle the situation really requires to have this kind of technologies inside the dashboard. That is because you cannot have the mirror link kind of a concept, to have because of the lot of driver distraction issues. So to start with, because everyone has got like the Android-based phones and or the iPhones, very little bit the Windows phone. At least if you give a CarPlay and Android Auto, at least you cover at least 80 to 85% of the population. However, as this is going to be a the default list of the marketing to selling the vehicle, another 2-3 years after this launch, OEMs again see what differentiation they can give, besides these two. That way, in India, definitely, the different SDL or other kind of technologies are going to come in, and where they will put, this is DNA of Tata, DNA of Mahindra, DNA of Ford, so whatever. So that's where they try to differentiate, because at the end of the day, inside the cockpit, only the user experience differs between the OEM to OEM. So in that way, this will be a difference.
So let me say, maybe in summary, do you think the average consumer buying a new car will be looking for a smartphone connection in the car, the ability to use their apps?
Yes, that is already given today, and it is growing.
Okay, all right. An NVIDIA perspective?
The answer is firm yes. Yeah, maybe it certainly will happen.
And then in the context of, what does that do to the embedded connection then? Are people less interested in that then if they can just connect their phone?
Sorry, come again. I don't think.
So the embedded connection from the telecom operator versus the connected smartphone.
Okay.
So in the US, typically you will have both.
Yeah.
Here you might have a customer that, I don't want that, wireless carrier thing I have to pay for every month. I already have that on my phone. Is that going to be an issue? What do you think?
I think that will be. I mean, it depends on the way the telecom company is going to price the connectivity. And I think a day will evolve when they all will be bundled together. That's what I think it will happen. Once this technology becomes more commonplace, they all will be bundled together.
Okay. Yeah. But in the short term, people will just be very happy connecting their smartphones.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Amkar, what is your thought on this subject?
Yeah, I think I have, if you look at connected cars in India, and I thought we had connected cars on our roads for quite a few years, and some cities are leading others. I mean, if you look at the traffic, the cars are literally connected to each other. So, jokes apart, I think I don't think Indian consumer would prefer a separate connection in the car. What it means is, I have to pay for one more plan, a data plan. People are as such, at least our survey shows that they're not happy that they have to keep paying something month on month. And then you put something else in the car for which you start paying every month apart from the fuel for which there is no escape. So I think they would probably piggyback on the smartphone, but it will be primarily determined by use cases again. So if you look at connected transportation, little larger perspective, one of the solutions KPIT is working on for the bus transportation, we have given a dedicated connectivity with multi-SIM because it's required, it's critical, you need to track the vehicle, not just something happens, but what led to happening of whatever happened, and transmit the data in and out. Similarly, things would happen in the other commercial segments like fleet management. I think it's happening in India, there are many solutions available. The problem is, and I'll give an example of a large company who ships certain perishable goods from point A to point B. You have got a lot of middle players involved, and when they ship something from their factory to their customer, neither do they know where it is and nor does the customer know. When the vehicle gets to the download site, it has to be downloaded and the payment has to be done quickly. Now, these are all the use cases where dedicated connectivity is justified and it pays for itself.
And you mentioned connected buses, and
Yeah.
Obviously you're involved in that initiative and it's supported by the government. But what percentage of buses are connected today with an embedded module?
So, since it is also driven based on certain initiative and certain regulatory route, almost 100% of the buses coming under that are equipped with this kind of a system.
Will be. Okay.
However, if you look at the existing footprint, it's a pretty small volume. Whatever is happening in the commercial space is more because the fleet owner who runs that business is interested in doing that. Somebody presented about bus entertainment today. We see that as a second area where dedicated connectivity finding its applications, and it is beginning to happen. From the passenger vehicle perspective, I think it's primarily going to be used as phone because the distinctive the use cases which will give perceptible advantage on a daily basis are not yet, there are no strong use cases for which, let's say, I have to pay another maybe 60 bucks, 60 rupees or 100 rupees a month to just keep that thing running. But we need to look at the use cases. Second aspect is the average speeds in India of the vehicles are far lesser, at least in the city context, urban context, which leads to a possibility that even in case of an accident, maybe your cell phone is still okay and it's still able to communicate. That kind of puts off the pressure of putting a secure, dedicated connectivity module, which no matter what happens will always work. But as things change, as roads gets better, and as things will come, it may come. But as of today, it's going to be passengers' own phone, I believe.
Okay. All right, this is your opportunity. You are a wireless IoT kind of guy, so what is your vision? You're for embedded connectivity, but you just heard a very strong perspective from two of your colleagues here about smartphone connectivity being preferred by the consumer. So
Yeah.
how are we going to get consumers to go with
Yeah, actually, so if here is a embedded connectivity, that is again you need to depending on the operator, which operator is taking. That is one thing. Second thing, until unless we have a OTA over the top, OTA over the air, application upgrade like any embedded today OEM manufacturer offering some set of applications. So in India today's scenario, it is limited to that only. Otherwise, you need to upgrade the next set
Don't
of
wait for me, go ahead.
next set of the features which are available in the manufacturer which we offer into the next model. So this is the way actually it's impacting the consumer is a over cost. That is the one thing. If you are taking away from the separate module, and there are over the top applications also available which is not limited to the OEM or maybe the telecom operator, which can any OTT operator openly available, and because we have a connectivity, Wi-Fi, whatever it is, maybe to 4G or 3G LTE technology. So once the moment you connected your device, you can download the apps. Some of the apps are also available in the free of cost. So with the connectivity, suppose in the dashboard you have even internal connectivity from the core management. Even applications are openly available. In fact, you can use connecting with your apps in your smartphone or tablet, whatever it is. So connected with your car, and you can experience those applications. Example, I'll give you customer experience point of view, augmented reality. I'll take into the latest technology. Let's say you buy a new car, okay, and you don't know what the features are there, how to just say there are some new features introduced like a gear system, maybe in a European car it is a front, and maybe in an Asian car it is a back, and I'm talking about reverse gear. So you are new to that car, but you wanted to know about the gear system, how it is operated. The moment you open the app and you can scan it, that it understands what car it is, automatically it will on that app, and it will explain you the experience, augmented reality, how it will work, and maybe in a dashboard experience, maybe interior experience, maybe the car is stopped somewhere in the highway, so you wanted to do some pre-diagnostic before reaching to the service provider.
So, and what about embedded connectivity being used for calling for assistance, which we heard about from one of the startups, automatically if you're in a crash,
Yes,
especially if you're unconscious, or, and this is your chance, collision avoidance using embedded wireless.
Correct. So what happens in that case, it is completely dead along with the car. But whereas you have a separate device, so you can go and even diagnose. That's what I'm explaining this one. So you can open the bonnet and you can check. You can, based on this augmented reality, it will give you some diagnostic tips. Okay, you check the fuel, you check the some wiring, whatever it is. So maybe that is helpful by the self rectification. You can do it yourself. Some using these applications. If not, maybe you can connect it with WebRTC or NLP based chart. So those are so many artificial intelligence technologies available now. We can implement. This is a ample of opportunity. This kind of environment. So I mean to say there are advantages, disadvantages, either embedded or open. So that's what I want to say.
Okay. Final comment, and then we'll give you an opportunity if anybody has a question for these panels. Last comment on smartphone versus embedded connectivity from your perspective.
The embedded connectivity is going to happen. It's going to start with the commercial vehicle segment, we believe, where telematics is going to be an integral part of the vehicle itself. We see that happening with the top players in the commercial vehicle segment. When you talk about smartphone integration, I think this is more predominant in the passenger vehicle segment, where you have users who are able to connect via Bluetooth to the smartphone and then are able to get connectivity solutions. So you have a device that connects to the vehicle and it's transmitting the information to the backend via the smartphone. So this is one way of connecting and collecting data. The other element is obviously interfacing the smartphone to the infotainment system. The biggest question in the equation is when you look at B2C, end consumers, are they willing to pay for these services? How much are they willing to pay, and what is the business model an aftermarket company like ours or a OE supplier like ours, different scenarios should consider. A lot of challenges. There are car manufacturers who already provide this, but again, the question is the end consumer going to pay for it in the aftermarket?
And what about using a connected smartphone to extract sensor data from the car into the cloud, your cloud, and or using the connected smartphone for over-the-air software updates?
You can do both. You have to make sure that it's secure. Whatever mechanism you use to transmit data, you have to make sure you have a secure network, VPN, and it's all even better if you have a dedicated line, what we use. Irrespective, you can use, irrespective of whether you're using it to transmit the data or to collect the data, you need to have a secure connection, what we believe. We believe that the Bluetooth interface to the smartphone is kind of an entry-level solution. Today you could find dongles on the internet and have an app, and then you can still connect. But then the advantage is to have a secure ecosystem starting from the hardware to the smartphone, to the data center, back to your smartphone. The whole ecosystem has to be secure in all aspects, and some target customer group would prefer the GSM-based solutions because you don't have the interface of smartphone, which could be switched off, which could be misused due to different reasons in different sectors today. So you can argue about it, but again, it depends on the needs, but that is one of the ways of collecting information by smartphone.
So before we thank these panelists for their valuable perspectives, you do have an opportunity to ask a question or two, and we have one right here. Can someone bring a microphone? I'm sure you have a loud voice.
Thank you. My question is to Mr. Brijesh and Mr. Ramalingam. Currently, I'm working with a group of people we call as Project Manas from Manipal University. We started with Mahindra Challenge for driverless car last year. So currently, we are India's top 13 teams for building driverless car. We've already built our first prototype, and now we're getting a Mahindra E2O to build a commercial prototype. And now we're scaling to a proper startup, seed funded by Manipal University. My question is regarding the cost factor. Our hardware cost, whatever we have, is very high so far. We got two LIDRs, one was from Japan, one from Germany. Now Bosch is a company which has been doing a lot of hardware work in autonomous drive. So let's say if Bosch starts manufacturing something in-house, how much cost reduction can I expect? And same for the NVIDIA, all the graphing engine we have, they're very costly for us.
So you're talking about an aftermarket autonomous driving system?
Yes, and obviously...
What, are we saying about $5,000 today?
Way less.
Way less, oh, okay.
And second thing is the warranty. Now definitely I want to go on the warranty and insurance also.
So how rapidly can cost be reduced, and who is going to stand behind it?
Yeah, so now we are in the business model, we are taking care of the warranty and insurance, covering it, but we want to take support of the OEMs to help us with the warranty and insurance. So how can Bosch and NVIDIA be a part of this?
First of all, it's good to know that you're working on driverless cars. I think I will talk to you after this break.
Sure.
It's very interesting. We are very keen. We are also looking for startup companies to mentor and to support, especially in the area of automotive technology. And I clearly made a statement that that is the future. We can't put a date, but that's the future. We're really keen, so that should answer your question. More details to follow. Talking about hardware manufacturing, cost reduction, there's always a question to Bosch. You're the leading supplier, automotive technology provider to car manufacturers worldwide. Every car or every vehicle I would say has a Bosch part, right? Why don't you manufacture your own car, Bosch car, right? So there is certain elements where we focus on strategy, where we believe we are good in providing technologies in automotive industry. So we focus on providing technology. But on the other hand, we collaborate with partners and companies globally.
There was news that Bosch is going to manufacture LiDARs.
It does?
I found it on Google.
LiDAR.
So, LiDARs.
Your own LiDAR.
Yeah.
LiDAR.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, no? Are you going to make your own LiDAR, or are you going to source LiDAR technology? LiDAR, the scanner, the laser scanner.
laser detection, right?
See, again, there are a lot of things we manufacture, like sensors and radars are one of the key products, what we do. And we will always keep to this technology-driven, kind of.
But are you going to make your own laser device?
I think we will discuss in the break.
That's his question. The bigger question, of course, is this perception. Can you pass the microphone down? Is the perception that it's software is free, right? We just pay for the hardware, the software we just give away.
So, Ranjan, I'm going to answer this in a different perspective. So, when you say it's expensive, there are ways of looking at it. It's certainly expensive for a person who is working in the Manipal University and who is in startup mode, who is developing solutions, who is trying for that. Yes, it is expensive. Now, think of it from the end user perspective. Look at it, the solutions as a fraction of the price of the car that he buys, and it will be like nothing. So, to answer your question, will it come down? Yes, it will come down. But it won't come down to, let us say, 50% or 60%. That's not going to happen. As more and more people adopt it, the price will marginally drop. It has to happen. That's the way the prices evolve. Let me compare. Okay, but having said that, I mean, like Brijesh said, see, we are also very keen, this is not only for Ranjan, it is for the other people also who are gathered here. NVIDIA as a company, at least in India, we need to do a lot more in terms of nurturing the startups who use our technology. And that is something which we realize, and we are working towards that, and we will come out with programs, structured programs, which is already there in the US, but it's not there implemented in India, which has to be done. We are aware of the fact. So we'll come up with a structured way of working with people like you, and in whatever way we can, I'm not giving commitments or whatever, don't take me wrong, but then in whatever way we can, we will certainly ensure that the budding professionals, budding startups who are promising, who do good work in that, we can help them in whatever way we can. And there are plans to do that. Okay, but if you're going to ask me that in the long run, commercially, will the price be slashed by half? The answer is no. Okay, I don't design pricing in my company, but I really don't believe so.
I was just speculating that when we have CNG kit in India, CNG, when CNG came in market, it was very expensive.
Right.
People were getting it individually fixed. But slowly the OEMs came, they said, okay, we'll give you a retrofitted CNG.
Right.
So the cost came down. Right. So can this similar trend follow for the driverless technology?
Let's see. I really don't want to repeat whatever I said, but I believe that if you look at the component as a percentage of the car, which is what the end consumer pays, it will not even be noticed. So, I really don't see a reason for a company to bring down the price. That's what I believe today. Let us see, maybe when that option becomes wider.
That is true, but let's say if your GPU is a faulty or buggy, and it's a very expensive thing. So how will you, are you going to just change it, or you're going to repair it, all those things, right? So the warranty is the very cost.
You want to take the negotiation into the hall? We have time for maybe one more question in the back.
Good afternoon, my friends and my senior. My name is Ajay Vadoni and I am from Dehradun. My question is, I am not against technology, but I want to say don't create dependency on technology. I don't get shocked one day when someone said that the incident happened just because there is no updated version of software in car. And the car price go high and high as the day passed because because market they create new version of software, and the only thing is we have to update our software in car. So I just want to speak in Hindi कि हमारी कार की कीमत इतनी हो जाएगी जितनी उसकी है भी नहीं. हम नए वर्जन लाते लाते उसमें इतने वो कर देंगे कि हमारी कॉस्ट कहीं के कहीं पहुंच जाएगी। तो इसके ऊपर कुछ सजेशन।
So I don't know, I couldn't catch the question that, but probably it was more of a comment. But let me still try to respond. I think what he's saying is, we have to keep updating the software. It can get expensive. I think where we are standing today things stop working when you update the software. There are umpteen examples. Smartphones. I don't know the name, but the smartphones stop working when you update the software. That's the state of art today. What you're saying is, yes, you have to keep updating the software. The perspective is this. I think, from the autonomous perspective, I think that's the connotation you had, is that, unless you update the software, the car will not function and maybe lead to an accident. What it means is, the environment is going to change and the car needs to learn. I think we talked about deep learning, etc. here. So the more the data, more the scenario. So there are going to be changes, and therefore technologies like update over the air is going to be very critical. Once you have these fundamental building blocks, it will give you an ability to update certain parts of the system in a controlled manner without your intervention, and then thereby keep the cost low. In fact, I would argue that because you are able to update the software, the cost will remain low. If you have to go and replace some control parts, it will become extremely expensive to keep on doing that. Let's say, I'm exaggerating, let's say every 3 months, hey, like I have an autonomous car and I've been driving between Pune and Mumbai, and now I want to take it to Bangalore, and it doesn't know how to navigate certain section in between. I cannot go and replace the part, but I can train the part, I can train the computer, which is where the beauty of the architecture comes in, that you can update it over the air as many times as it deserves to be updated in a controlled manner, and then hopefully keep the running cost low, so to say. Yes, there is going to be an upfront cost to it, to put the architecture in place, put the components in place, but once you have all of that, the rest should take care of itself.
Thank you for the questions. There is a wave of software updating implementation going on in the automotive industry this year, and it will start with TCUs and infotainment, and then in another couple of years, the ability to update the safety systems in the car and all ECUs, just like Tesla. And Tesla has shown you can add features to the car with software updates, which I think is maybe the most compelling argument. Please thank the panelists for their thoughts.
I request all of you all to please stay back, since we have Mr. Sanjay Puri giving a small token of appreciation. Thank you for sharing the insights, and thank you for making time out for the Connected Transport Conference 1.0.
Picture of that.